All right, we are here for episode 20 of Keeping It Local, and I am here with Kim Benia from Yoga Moksha. Kim, how's it going?
Hey John, doing well. How about you?
Doing all right. Long time no see. Old buddies here. I think you were actually the first person that said you wanted to come onto the podcast, and then it just took, a while to get on, but here we are.
You made it.
Yeah, number 20. You're the 20th episode. Wild. All right.
Nice.
Um, So give us a little background. Tell us what Yoga Moksha is, why it's different, why it's special, how you got into this, all the good stuff.
Sure. So I'll give you like a quick rundown. So I am not somebody who has like trillions of years of experience with yoga as we know it in the West. I actually, when I was in my previous marriage, I had a stepdaughter and we were super, super close. I was always into like hippie things and alternative lifestyles. So I always shared with her different ways to breathe through difficult situations or how to use mindfulness in different situations. We would do these like relaxations before bed when I would put her to sleep at night, visualizations, like whenever she would lose something, I had angel spray that was really just like essential oils, but it would be like, to us, it would be like, oh, we were calling on the angels to help us find the thing, and we would visualize where we last saw it and stuff like that. And then it wasn't until I had my own child, my own baby, and I was moving through a divorce where I saw an ad on Instagram for kids yoga to become certified to teach yoga to children. And I was like, that's probably adorable. Like little kids doing like downward dog and stuff like that. Literally the only experience I had prior to taking a kids yoga certification was stretching, like a yoga stretching class during lacrosse in high school. And then I remember when I was engaged, my best friend was also engaged, and we joined a gym and we went to a silver sneakers yoga class at the gym, which I had no
Mhm.
idea was senior citizens being bussed in from assisted living homes. And they were like nailing all the postures, and my friend and I were like, "What are we doing?" So that was it. So I So I took this teacher training. It was 23 hours through a great company called Kidding Around Yoga. Most of it was done online, and then 2 days of live training. And I fell in love with it. I learned that the meditations, the visualizations, the breath work, the like shaking our like jitters out, that was all yoga. And I had no idea. Like most people here in the West, I thought yoga was downward dog, handstands, contorting the body, and that was that. So when I took that training, I fell in love with it. I started a little mini side business right off the bat. There was so much demand for it. I was traveling all over Long Island within the first couple months. Um, from there, I realized I didn't know many postures that well. I just kind of knew like the shape that it was supposed to be. So I
Mhm.
ended up taking a 200-hour teacher training at the Funky Home, which is the studio, the yoga business that I ended up purchasing a few years later.
Okay.
And from there, I just fell in love with like all the philosophy and everything else. So fast forward, I took a bunch of training since then in all different capacities. And I bought the Funky Home from the previous owner in 2022. And by July of 2023, I changed the name, which it needed like a rebrand for multiple reasons. And I was able to start to express outward what yoga was to me through the studio. And we have an awesome team of teachers here, a wonderful group of volunteers who come for all different events that we have here weekly or bi-monthly. And it's just kind of turned into this beautiful place for spirituality, connecting with other people, connecting with ourselves, and really self-development for people of all ages, children to grandparents.
It seems like you have a great community there from like what I've seen on social and the website and everything.
Thanks. Yeah, it's really like it's a really heart-centered place where everybody's here to serve and offer something. Not about the money. It's not about, who's the best teacher or who's the hottest or like that is like checked at the door. And I
Mhm.
love that about this space.
No egos.
Well, I mean, we all have ego.
Yeah.
Diminished a little bit.
Right, right. I want to go back to something you said when you first started getting going. When you said demand was so high. So what do you attribute to that? Like, why was demand, or why, I mean, demand is still high, but why was it so high when you first started doing this?
So that was back in 2019. So it was just before COVID. It was April 7th of 2019 was when I graduated from with my kids yoga certification. And what I found, what I believe to be the attribute to that is that our generation, you and I, we were raised by the generation before us, obviously, who is a little bit more awake and aware and mindful and sensitive and like gentle than the generation before them. And that's just kind of how it goes. So our generation, who at that point I was in my early 30s, my peers were moving through being basically new parents for the most part. And our generation is a little bit more understanding of emotions and how the childhood really affects the person moving into adulthood.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so our generation of parents are starting to like really understand, oh, if I'm talking really negatively to my child and calling them stupid or calling them dumb or having no patience for them or whatever it may be, that's being like held on to the child and then they lash out in other ways. So I think that that understanding is becoming more and more mainstream. And now being in this for a few years, I'm seeing that not only that, but a lot more parents are more aware of what, not even just parents, but what we're putting into our bodies. Like our diet isn't just the food, it's also the mindset. It's also the people that we're surrounding ourselves with. It's also the environments that we're putting ourselves into and things of that nature. So I think that was like a big demand at first, and it was something a little different. So a lot of our peers, our generation, began to practice yoga probably more than the generation before that. I think it keeps growing. But I lost my train of thought for a second, sorry.
That's
So
okay.
so if we're practicing this and we're seeing what a benefit this is to us, even if we practice it maybe in our early 20s or in our teens, then we're seeing, oh, our child could really benefit from slowing down a little bit and being more mindful and understanding their feelings and their emotions better. Once COVID hit, this like boomed. I did a ton of stuff on Zoom. I remember actually you and I did some stuff, right? With your was it football that you were coaching or maybe your class?
Oh yeah, yeah,
Do you
yeah.
remember
I
that?
totally forgot about that.
I just came across my old YouTube channel and that's like the only reason I'm even like remembering. That was like a
That's
blur.
crazy. I totally forgot about that.
Yeah, so but there was such a demand during COVID while everybody was learning from home, right? I forget what it was called, like at home learning or whatever it was.
Yeah, yeah, remote learning. Yeah.
Yeah, but
Yum.
yeah, there was like, so there was all this extra time that the kids didn't have to go to soccer, or they didn't have to go to football, or they didn't have to go to, cello practice or piano practice or this or that, or the family things, birthday parties. So there was like all of this extra downtime. And within that, the parents at like the height of the freak out of COVID, if the parents were freaking out, that was bleeding into the children freaking out. So you can tell from the students whose parents were like, okay, this is all right, we're going to ride this out, and whose parents were like, I'm watching every news channel 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And the kids needed it. They needed a moment to shut off their brain, get away from all the like all this crazy work that they were doing online and be able to just be with themselves and express what they were experiencing, not necessarily what the news stations were feeding them to feel or what the parents were feeding them to feel. And luckily, a lot of parents were really open to that, to understanding like, hey, I don't have these tools and these skills to cope for myself or for my children. Can you help me? So there was
Hey, what's up, guys? Sean again. Sorry to bother you and interrupt, but if you like what you're seeing, then please click that like and subscribe button. The great thing about keeping it local is you're meeting local businesses and local entrepreneurs who provide phenomenal service. So this is almost like an initial job interview into someone that you might have in your own home to provide this job or service. So again, if you like what you're seeing, click that like button, click that subscribe button. Other than that, let's get back to the program.
so there was like
Mm-hmm.
a lot of interest during COVID and then even coming out of that.
What I'm glad that you did though, um, was to continue. I feel like a lot of people with COVID and everything, when they moved online, they kind of stayed online. And even some businesses, like, they kind of stayed to that format, and they didn't bring it back to doing it in person. Because there was a lot of great community sharing, right? Like, you just reminded, like, I totally forgot that I was like, watch this yoga class, like, for the football team. But then it's like, okay, now go out and do something. Now it's like, you want people to get back out there and interact and be around each other. And there are a lot of there's a lot of businesses, a lot of things that kind of shifted to just remote, and that's how you do it, and that's it. And like, this is, I feel like yoga also, it's, to me, it's a sport, right? And this may not be the correct classification, so don't take offense, or like, I don't know anything. I'm so bad at yoga. But like, to me, it's like, it's like going to the gym, it's like exercise. It's like, I don't necessarily love it while I'm doing it because it hurts, because I'm not flexible, but when I'm done, you never like finish a yoga session or a workout and feel like, oh, God, I hate that I did that. It's like, it's impossible. No matter how bad it was, when you're done, it's like, very happy I did that. So just to be able to experience that and do that, like you would said with the kids, like getting out of that, and for adults too, just stepping away from all the nonsense, however, wherever it's coming from in whatever direction, and being able to just like 20 minutes, half an hour, just focus on like taking deep breaths and stretching is huge. And for me, it's like going to the gym. It's like just being able to take like 45 minutes and go and lift weights for a little while and punish myself on the climb mill is like, I feel great after that. It's like, yeah, okay, I'm like, mentally I'm back. But yeah, you're right. Like, it has to be taught, and has to be learned, and it has to be something really that's involved in like everyday life at this point. Like, I mean, you're a yoga instructor, but how often would you recommend someone doing like a 30-minute yoga session like per week? Is it a daily thing? Is it twice a day? Like, what do you say?
I am such a big proponent of like what works for you works for you. So anything is better than nothing. I always say in classes, and the atmosphere here at the studio is, you have, it's most of the classes are 60 minutes here. You have 60 minutes to do what you want. There's a teacher here guiding you, telling you how to do the postures, what posture to do next, when to breathe. They have something called the Dharma talk that incorporates some yoga philosophy in it. But essentially, if you want to just lay on your mat and take Shavasana, which is like that resting pose at the end of class, for the whole 60 minutes, go for it. If you want to just cry on your mat for 60 minutes, go for it. Like, in all seriousness, I've been there a bunch of times. Yoga has a way of like really offering some opening up in your body. And it's not just physical, it's not just mental, it's not just emotional, it's not just spiritual. It is a combined effort of all of those things. As far as the physical postures, I mean, it really depends on what you're looking to get from it. If you're looking to stretch and strengthen, and especially like with athletes, there's something really important there, that you can use yoga as a supplement for the other things that you're doing, the other activities that you're doing in your life. So if you're looking for that, I would say like 3 or 4 times a week would be fantastic. If you're not doing anything else, like I generally walk, I have a dog, so I walk him multiple times a day. And in the winter, I love hiking. So, and then summertime, I'm paddleboarding. So like, those are my activities, but I need yoga for my mental state. The other stuff is like great for mental, great for physical, but
Right.
it really depends on what you're looking for. I mean, there's some people, you said something before, like, I think you were talking more about working out, but you said about like, you're not flexible. That, as a yoga instructor, it's like our favorite thing to hear, because it's like, you can practice yoga without being able to touch your toes, believe it or not. Like, I'm assuming you're sitting in a chair. Right now, I'm sitting on a floor. This is a yoga posture. I am practicing yoga right here. And if you're taking any component of yoga, which is a lot more than most people understand it to be, you're practicing yoga every day. Like, think about, you have children, right?
Yep. 2 girls. My
Okay.
4-year-old
Okay.
loves yoga, by the way. She loves getting on the YouTube, and she loves it. The breathing. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. No, it's so great. Like, especially for kids, but like, think about when your daughters are having an absolute meltdown. One of the first things that you probably say is, take a deep breath, right?
Mhm.
Like, take a breath, take a breath, take a breath.
Mhm.
That's yoga. It's just like
Yeah.
coming back to yourself. And when you take that deep breath, you're automatically slowing down your heart rate, which automatically slows down and neutralizes your nervous system. So
Mm,
if you're doing 5 minutes of breathing a day, like conscious breathing, you're doing wonders for yourself. Five
mm.
minutes. And that could be while you're driving. That could be
Yeah.
while you're going for a walk. That could be while you're like before you start the day, whatever it is, you know?
Yeah. I think we had talked about this a while back. I was I got to get back on it. Like I'm more sporadic now, but like the Wim Hof breathing. Have you ever done like the Wim Hof stuff? Um, but that I did, well, the first few times you do it, it's like it's pretty wild. Um, but once you get used to it, just like you said, like the calming effects of like deep breathing and just like doing a certain type of breathing exercise for a certain amount of time has such positive effects. Like it is always a way for me to just like calm down, and like when I'm done with it, I'm like, okay, like I feel like I'm ready to go. Like my brain is recharged. I'm in it. But it's funny what you said. Like my 4 year old is like a very very emotional kid, and she can tantrum pretty hard. She's getting growing out of it somewhat, thank God. Um, but like she loves the calming effect of like the yoga. Like we do it. She like asks like, can we do the yoga video before bed tonight because it calms her down and it brings her down a level. But since you've been doing this for so long now, and you have this business, this whole community of kids, what like do you have any examples, or what changes have you seen for kids and their mental health like doing yoga all the time?
One of the probably, well, it kind of depends on the age group. It
Okay.
depends on, like, there's so much of teaching yoga that's intuitive. So whether it's adults or kids, when they come into a class, um, you might have one thing planned, like as a teacher, right? Like when you have one thing planned and the class is just like off the walls and you're like, okay, throwing that lesson plan out the window. So you just kind of have to like roll with that. But
Yeah.
so your question is like the changes that I've seen?
Yeah, like what are the positive effects that you're seeing with the kids? Like have you seen any, like I'm sure you've seen like direct stuff where it's like maybe less tantrums or more calm or big control, self-control, whatever it is.
Yeah. So, okay. So one of the things that I get the most feedback from parents is this mantra and mudra that we do. So a mantra is spoken word, mudra is finger placements. This is something that I learned from that first place that I took my training with, Kidding Around Yoga. So you can even do it with me. You put your hands up like this.
All right, I'm gonna do it.
All right. So this is like, I call it a triple threat.
Okay.
What it does is you're taking deep breaths each time that you do it.
Okay.
You are repeating positive affirmations,
Okay.
and you're hitting a point on your fingertips that are actually a meridian in acupuncture that sends a signal to your brain to calm down. So when you hit
Okay.
these points in your fingers, it's literally sending a message to your brain to like chill out. So you put your hands up like this, take a big breath in through your nose, touch your thumb to your pointer fingers and say peace.
Peace.
Good. Big breath in, thumb to your middle finger and say begins.
Begins.
Good. Big breath in, thumb to your ring finger and say with.
With
Big breath in, thumb to your pinky finger and say me.
me.
Good. So the mantra is peace begins with me. And you're just tapping the tips, right? So once I teach that in a class, we'll take it three full rounds of it. So big breath in, peace
Peace
begins with
begins with
me.
me.
Good.
I'm not
Big
that good
breath
at
in.
this.
You got it. Big breath in. Peace
Peace
begins with
begins
me.
with me.
Big breath in. Peace
Peace
begins
begins
with
with me.
good. Now, what you're doing, like I said, is you're taking these big breaths in, you're repeating a positive affirmation, and you're sending signals to your brain to calm down. What I've heard
Okay.
from parents more than anything else is like they'll send me a text, hey, little Joey was really freaking out that I told him that he had to clean his room today. And I heard him after his initial meltdown, I heard him saying, peace begins with me. Peace begins with me. Peace begins with me. Kids are sponges. So something like that, you're telling yourself, hey, there might be chaos going on around me, whether it's cleaning your room or your friends are fighting or maybe all your friends turned against you in the cafeteria that day, or whatever it is. You can't control the stuff going on around you. You can find a way to control what's going on inside of you. That is massively huge. It helps kids come back to themselves. Yeah.
Like that's like the because I'm around kids all the time, and especially I'm around kids with major impulse control problems. And I think one of the things that you're doing is it's so important that they learn this coping. I'm going to call it a coping mechanism, but I don't know if that's the right definition for it. But um, it's so important to learn this at a young age, because kids who don't learn how to control that impulse from, like, let's say age 5 to age 12, by the time they hit their teen years and the prefrontal cortex is really going crazy and they're starting to develop and they're starting to mature, it can go really haywire, where they have a lot of trouble or almost have no control over those impulses. So to be able to see a kid doing that now and like reeling it in, and how old is little Joey, for example, or like that kid?
6, 7, 4. I mean, like I
That's
get stuff from.
crazy. That's crazy. Like to have a 4-year-old or a 7-year-old, especially like a 4, like my daughter's 4. I know how her emotions can get the better of her at times, like to be able to have a mechanism to control that is just so important for their future development. That's like, to me, the biggest thing is like you are learning how to stop yourself from getting to a point where you can't come back.
Totally. It's all about like practicing that pause, about responding instead of reacting. And I can't tell you the irony of how I need to tell myself that while teaching kids, teaching kids yoga
Mm-hmm.
about how to calm themselves down, and they're not listening to me. And before I lose my mind, I go, oh, peace begins with me. Like, what am I teaching? Remember that peace begins here, and you
But you're
can
doing it so they're seeing it. Like you're doing it for
I'm
real, like
trying
right
to
in
do
front of
it.
them.
But it's like you can substitute that with any mantra, anything that makes sense to you. So like we do another one that we do often is I can do hard things. So when we're practicing a difficult posture or holding that difficult posture, we say, hey, what's that mantra that we say all the time? Oh, you're wobbling while you're holding a posture? Totally normal. We have 2 feet for a reason. Now you're standing on like one toe and you're like doing the disco. Like, okay, I can do hard things. And the whole idea behind kids yoga or adult yoga or wherever you're at in it is that, like, I love using yoga. It's called asana, the postures. I love using yoga asana as like this lab. So you're on a yoga mat and you're putting yourself in these challenging situations. You are facing fears. You're facing this voice in your head that's telling you you can't do things, or you're not enough, or you're not strong enough, or you're not this, you're not that, or you don't have a yoga practice, whatever it is. You're facing all of this stuff right here, and you're in a controlled environment that you're supposed to be facing that thing. And you're supposed to come back to your breath. You're supposed to quiet that chatter in your mind. So then when you're out in the world and you're trying out for the football team and you're like, who do I think I am that I'm going to make this football team? I can't do this. I can't do that. Da, 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 da. You mess up one thing, you mess up the second thing, you forget your mouth guard, whatever it is. Whoa, come back to what you just learned in yoga. Just breathe. You're here in this present moment. What happened before doesn't matter. What's happening in front of you doesn't matter. Right here is what matters. How are you handling that challenging situation? It's like,
You're
I wish I
creating
had
mental
this.
toughness. Like yeah, right. I wish I
Yeah.
had it too when I was a kid, where it's like calm down. Like, but that's what it is. It's mental to me. Like the way I would categorize it is like mental toughness, because I always love that conversation, because again, I deal with high school kids, and a lot of them like to express how strong they are and how tough they are and everything, and it's like, well, the perception, which I had too when I was younger, the perception of tough is like being strong, and like, yeah, I could snap someone in half, but it's like really what it is like how much can you manage and keep your calm or keep your cool. Like it doesn't take anything to snap and lose it. That doesn't show to me at this point. I've matured quite a lot, if you could believe that. I'm such a mature adult now. Like it doesn't, to me, that shows zero toughness, is like the kid who can control themselves, the kid who can push through. Because a lot of those same people, and I shouldn't just say kids because it's older people too, but like the people who are, if you can't push yourself through to the end physically and push yourself to the limits and make yourself do something that's really hard, that to me is like the line of toughness, is like, how far can you push yourself? How much can you do even though you don't want to? And these are the type of things that help to build that mental stamina, to be able to sit there. And that could be with taking a test too. Like we talking about it all the time with kids, test taking stamina. Like they don't have it. They don't have the mental toughness to be able to concentrate and work hard and try for the entire length of like a really long test. Whereas if you can build that and create the foundation for that mental toughness, anything else comes. It's like, that's why people can go out and run a marathon without really training. Like, it's like, it's a physical feat and it's really hard. And I'm not taking anything away from it, but you hear stories all the time where people are like, I'm going to run the marathon, train for maybe a week or two, and they go out and do it. Their time isn't great, but because it's mental, because it's just like, all right, if my body doesn't break down, like how much longer can I just mentally push myself? And that's what you're giving these kids in a really calm and collective way.
Yeah, it's like I always love to say success is only continuously pushing through your failures. Like that is, and that's with everything, not just like yoga, not just sports, not just test taking. It's with everything. And like, look at what you're doing with your life, with your career, multiple careers, right? Like, and on top of that, you're a father of two girls, which is probably insanity. So
It's a
like,
little crazy.
but you've got a lot going on. But if you stay focused on what your goal is for each different venture, right, you're going to fail a bunch of times. But success is only moving through those failures. It's not like, I remember my dad used to say, it's not about how many times you get pushed down, it's how many times you get back up, or like whatever that saying is. And it's like really creating that. And that's what I mean. Like it's like a lab when you're on your yoga mat. And it's, it's adults, it's kids, it's everybody. And when you're holding a typical posture, like my nephew, he's going to be a freshman in high school this year. And he's at the stage where like any reflective material next to him. He's checking himself out. Like he thinks who he is. Every time I see him, he's doing pull-ups off like the stairs. Like he's just there. And when I've just like had it with him being like, oh, I'm so tough, I'm so macho, I'm so this, I'm so that. I'm like, hey, why don't you come try this arm balance real fast? I want to see if you could do this, right? And just kind of like cut him down a peg or two, you know? But what it
Mm-hmm.
comes down to with those difficult postures is can you just breathe through that challenge? Can you accept the fact that you're going to wobble, you're going to shake, you might fall? Can you be okay with that?
Right.
And then try again.
Right. And that's the key, is trying again, because the mental toughness is gone if you give up. Like that's it. Like you don't have it. Like you're not tough at that point. But if you're willing to keep going and push through those failures, like you said, until you reach success, that is like what creates also, I think, just the ability to, I think when you reach that point in your life where you know that you're going to push through, like it doesn't matter, like you just know, like it's whatever it is, like I'm gonna get it done. That's kind of the point where it's like, all right, that's where I feel like it's such a cliche, but like where you found your true self. Once you know that, like you're like, all right, whatever happens, like I'm gonna handle it. Like there's like I got it, I'm good. Like there's nothing that's gonna stop me. That's when it's kind of like, okay, like I'm here, I arrived, like I'm finally here. Like I know what I could do, I know what I'm gonna do, and I'm ready to go. Let's go. But it's hard to, if you don't have these foundations like you're talking about, it takes a really long time to get to that point.
Yeah. And it's not like just because I own a studio and this is literally practically 90% of my life doesn't mean that I don't have those moments of being like, how am I ever going to push through? Or like, like even like my asana, my posture practice, it is far from beautiful or graceful or pretty. Like it's just me pushing through the thing that I don't necessarily want to do in the moment that I'm doing it, but I know I got to do it for my own mental stability,
Yeah.
and it's interesting because it's just really this awareness, this awareness of your body, this awareness of your breath, this awareness of those thoughts. So like one of the ancient Vedic texts, it's called the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. It defines yoga as the second sutra in it is yoga's chitta vritti nirodha. And that means yoga is the cessation of the mind fluctuations. So like in one degree, that's what yoga is. It is quieting down this mind, this monkey brain that's like ping ponging back and forth between thought to thought to thought to thought And like essentially what you're doing in a yoga class, if you come to a 60-minute class, especially at a studio like we do here, it's like 5 to 10 minutes of like breathing, grounding down, centering yourself, some gentle movement. And then you get into like the heat part of it for like a stronger class, especially where you're like building up the sweat, you're building up the heart rate, you're building up that mental stamina, you're pushing through, pushing through. Then you're cooling down, and then you have about like 7 to 10 minutes of shavasana, which is our like resting posture. Some people meditate during it, some people fall asleep during it. But essentially, what you're doing, and the person who created this asana practice in the East, his whole idea with it, he was working with teenage boys, like 15, 16-year-old boys on a wrestling team. And he wanted to tire them out physically so they can be mentally fatigued as well. So it's like, it kind of comes full circle then, right? So it's like, if you're working out in the gym or you're going to a sports practice or you have a game or whatever it might be, like you are getting to the point where your body is so fatigued by the end of that, that afterwards you're in this like different headspace. No matter you won, lost, whatever, like there might be emotions behind that, but there's also this like clarity that comes through as well, and you
Mm-hmm.
can't really reach that until you allow yourself to slow down. So with meditation, like a lot of people will say, I can't meditate. I've tried. I can't do it, blah, 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 blah. And it's a practice. Like it is just a practice. And there's some days that I can just slip right into my meditation, no questions asked. I'm good. There's other days that I am like, when is this 20 minutes gonna be up? Like I can't do this. Has it been?
Yeah.
Nope, it's been 30 seconds. Okay. You know, it's just a practice.
Yeah, well, and you know what's funny? It's like I think the one thing about meditation, I do like doing it. Um, although I don't practice enough as you would say, but it's like no one can tell you if you're doing it right. And that's part of the problem. Like the only way you know if you're doing it wrong is like you said, like you're you got a million thoughts running through your head and you can't stop it from happening. But it's true though, the more you practice, the better you get at it. We were doing at our school, we were actually doing a lot of mindfulness for a while where it's like the art teacher, she was actually great at it. She would run like the mindful meditation and everything. And it's the first time I ever did one, it's like I think a lot of people probably have this and they just don't even say it. Like I was like anxious, like I was nervous, like I was doing it and I'm like, what's going on? And like felt like the tightness going on. I'm like, oh my God. And then after you do it for a little while, it's like very calming. Now I like some nights I have this like hypnosis guy that I listen to on YouTube before I go to sleep, and I am just like, I am done. I don't know if I'm actually being hypnotized, but um, like anybody can meditate, and it's all just revolving around the same things. It's just like calm, quiet. Like the
Yeah.
difference is like you're not watching Netflix, like you're just breathing and calming your brain instead of like continually stimulating it to calm down.
Exactly. And the only way that you're doing meditation wrong is if you're not doing it. So, like, you sitting there with no, like, if you do it silently and there's no music or there's no TV or you're stepping away from the family or whatever it is, if you're sitting there with the intention to slow things down, you're doing it right. Even if you're not seeing like shapes and colors and visualizations and like all this stuff, like, if you're just giving yourself that time in stillness, you're doing it. There's this great meme I see. I talk about it all the time in different trainings that I offer about these two monks. They're like in their orange robes and they're sitting there like in a meditative state. And they both have they have their eyes closed. And one of them is leaning over with an eye open saying, are you not thinking what I'm not thinking? Like essentially you're supposed to not be thinking, but how
Right.
hard is that to not think? To get to that point is tough, and that will last for like moments before you start realizing, hey, I'm not thinking. Well, that was just a thought. you
Hmm.
know, it's tough. It's not easy, but it's a practice, and it's as long as you're trying, that's what matters.
Yeah. It's you said something that was it made me think. Oh, I did. So if you meditate, sometimes you could have like visual. Now I want to like get better. Like you could see stuff. That's cool.
It's wild. It's really cool. Like but it's, there's like, this is something that athletes do often, or like super successful entrepreneurs that they're practicing a meditation visualization. So what
Right.
you're doing is you're like, have you seen this before?
I've seen some people tell, like, I know I've seen Conor McGregor, like I read an article about where the visualization manifestation of like what he wants and like winning his like visualizing the fights. I've it was funny. I used to do a little bit of that in like deck hockey. Like before I would play, I would like imagine myself like make certain moves just because I heard that like Henrik Lundqvist did the same thing. So I was like, yeah, why not? Sorry, I know you're an Islander fan. It's but yeah, like it does work. Like it puts you into, it's like I always wonder, like I think I read an article recently where like they talked about like what is actually going on when you're in the zone, because you know, like when you've been in the zone, like for wherever it is, like whether it's a sporting event or yoga or anything, like you know when you're in the zone, like you know when you're there, and it's like, well, how do I get in there every time? Like how do I consistently get back to that place and be in the zone as much as possible? um that's like, to me, like part of the visualization of it and like getting there and like thinking about it. It's like, okay, like how do I get my mindset into where I am like 100% just focused on this moment and what I'm doing?
Yeah. There's something that we call flow state. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but very
Mm.
similar. It's like you're just like in it, right? You're just going with it. And one of my favorite ways to get into like the zone or the flow state of things is really tapping into the subtle body. So, like, not worrying about like what I'm looking like when I'm doing the practice, but like connecting with the most subtle, intricate things of me. And it's funny, my mom growing up, she used to do this relaxation with me when I couldn't sleep, or if I woke up in the middle of the night, where she would go from my toes all the way up to my head and be like, different variations of like, oh, your toes are feeling so light like a feather and your legs are feeling like jello, and like took a really long time, only for me to find out years later she was doing yoga on me and she didn't know. I didn't know. But there's something called yoga nidra where they really tap into the subtle body and you get into this deep. I mean, that's like a whole other podcast, so we could talk about that stuff, but like it is incredible. So like if you're trying to just like take yoga nidra out of it, if you're trying to just really get connected with your body, like closing your eyes, the yogis believe that you enter the spiritual world the moment you close your eyes, which makes sense because you don't have all these other stimuli around you feeding to your brain about, oh, I see the green wall, I see the white wall, I see the macrame, I see the painting, blah blah. So like you can't see any of that, but that's all happening behind the screen. But but yeah, like one of my favorite ways to do it is to close my eyes and start to breathe and then notice. So like if you want to give it a try real fast, we'll do like a quick like 30 seconds of it. But
Sure, knock me out, let's go.
so close your eyes
Okay.
and just take a big breath in, nice long breath out. Good, without any expectation of what this is going to look like, how this is going to feel. Just notice yourself breathing. So notice the breath moving in, notice the breath moving out. Good. And then bring your awareness to the edges of your nostril. Feel the breath moving in through the nostrils, into the nose, down the throat, and then into the body. And then on your exhales, notice the breath moving out of the body, out of the lungs, out of the chest, through the nose, out through the nostrils. Notice the air on the inhale. Notice the air on the exhale. Are you aware that the breath on the inhale is a little bit cooler and the breath on the exhale is a little bit warmer? Imagine you can visualize this breath. You can travel with it, like Miss Frizzle or whatever from the Magic School Bus. And you're, but really, like, imagine you're like on this Magic School Bus traveling in through the nostrils, through the nose, down the throat, into the chest, and bring that breath all the way down into your belly and feel the belly expanding out as you're breathing in. And then as you breathe out, feel the stomach start to pull and contract back in as the breath pushes out of the torso, out through the throat, through the nose, out through the nostrils.
Oh yeah.
Like even it's so wild and like even
And
using your hands. Go ahead.
I have a lot of shit going on here too. Like there's a light in my face, everything, but still it's like it works. I mean, I've always been a believer that the stuff works. Like it works. Like
It's just it's so cool because we don't like, especially with breathing, it's one of our automatic systems. We don't think about it, we're just doing
mhm.
it. But then something that's so automatic, when we slow down and think about it, all of a sudden everything can slow down. Like we can start to like loosen the shoulders and the hips and the jaw and the forehead, you know? And even like taking your hands and just crossing it. So like spreading your hands on your rib cage so you can feel the intercostal muscles, like the space between the ribs. And when
Mm.
you breathe in, feeling them expand, and when you breathe out, feel them knit back together. And it's like, whoa, I never knew that was going on, you know? But you're like connecting to yourself.
Right. I like I like what you were doing there. I like when someone gives me like the visual instructions because then I could focus just on that. Whereas like if the ones that say empty your mind, like like on YouTube, I'll hear one like empty your mind, and it's like, it's impossible for me. Like there's just way,
Okay.
way too many things going on in here, like I cannot empty my mind. Like, have you met me? I can't even stop shaking my leg. But like the instruction of like, or just focus on, like, I love the ones that are like focus on, like, feel it, the breath going into your toes, feel the breath, like that gives me something to focus on. And with my restless mind, it's like, okay, I could just concentrate on that. This is great. So yeah, I mean, it seems like you have figured it out.
I
Like,
have not.
well, you figured out your, like, this studio, like helping the kids and everything. It seems like you you're bringing a very, very good positive thing to a lot of people. I get, that's what I mean by like figured it out. Like, yeah, nobody has it figured out. But like you've figured out a way to bring really just something that's like really positive and great to families and kids. Like, do you have a lot of families that come in together, like, and like mommy daughter stuff, or dads and boys too?
So we have more often it's like teens or preteens coming in with their mom or dad to come take a class together. The kids' classes, like you started to touch on this a little bit about how like after COVID, a lot of businesses stayed online. That definitely shifted. Like there are not a lot of kids who will come in for a in-person class. People are
Really? Okay.
looking, yeah, people are looking more for like an experience. So like doing a kids class at a park, or I'm hired for two different camps this summer at the beach. So I teach like 2 hours at two different camps, 2 days a week or one day a week each. And it's like the kids love it. But what's tough is like football, baseball, soccer, lacrosse, cheerleading, dance, gymnastics, all the other things, homework, like everything else takes precedent before kids yoga. So like I'll have it on the schedule and kids will come when they don't have practice, when they don't have games, when they don't have the other thing going on. And then once those other things start up, then they're gone for the season and then they'll come back. Or like if whatever, for whatever reason, it's bad weather out, whatever, then they come back in. Right. So it's a
Right.
lot of that. But there's a lot of interest in the parents bringing it like home for the kids. A lot
Okay.
of parents will like pull me aside. So it's funny. My boyfriend always says, I feel like you're more of a therapist than you are a yoga teacher. Because like after class, and I love it. It's part of like one of the reasons why I love what I do. But a lot of times after class, the students will stick around and ask some questions about like, my son's going through this. Do you have any like breathing techniques that you can share? Or my daughter really is trying to get better at whatever the sport is. Are there any stretches? My former stepdaughter recently asked me, she plays flag football, and she was like, I'm really hurt over, like, I'm really sore over here and over here and over here. Like, is there any stretches I could do? And I'm like, yes, let me send you everything. So I mean, like, there's definitely an interest in it, but as far as like a lot of like families coming in, like it's really, if there's like a special event, then yes. If it's like on a weekly basis, no.
Okay. See, but so I'm calling myself a liar, because I said earlier that I look at yoga as a sport. That's a lie, but I didn't realize it until you said it. I've always viewed yoga as therapy. Like to me, it's like it's a therapeutic thing. Like, and I attribute it for myself for sport or like working out. It's really more for me working out, like I said, because it's not easy. So like I'm happy when I'm done, but sometimes I have to will myself to do it. But it's straight therapeutic. I mean, and I'm a big, it drives me a little nuts right now. I have kids, so I'm guilty of it too, but like the amount of crap that we throw at kids to do, like the amount of activities, organized activities that kids are involved in all the time, to me is overwhelming and it's crazy. And I see a lot of kids, like by the time they get to like high school, they are so burnt out from the majority of the things that they're doing because they're doing either too much or they're doing so much of one thing. Like they're playing baseball and they're getting pitching lessons and they're getting hitting lessons and they're doing this and they're doing that. And it's 15 hours a week of baseball. And by the time they get to high school, they're like, I hate this sport. Like I don't want to do it anymore. And like, I don't know, to me, I prioritizing something like this has so many benefits that people should really take a second and just think like, maybe this is like something that I should make as part of my regimen and not just like an activity that is available when I'm not doing 5 million other activities.
Yeah. It's
And I'm
hard
guilty
though.
of it
Like,
too. I'm telling myself this. I'm manifesting that I'm going to make this change.
I mean, that's great. I'm guilty of it too. I have my son 7.5 years old, and I mean, I just signed him up for soccer this morning. We're planning on putting him into coding school because he did like this really cool Roblox coding thing over the summer that he
That's
loved.
fun.
He loves baseball. Like there's all these things, right? Like I'm guilty of it too, and we're just trying to keep up with the Joneses because then all of a sudden we're like not a good parent if we're not having them exposed to all different things or the best of all the things that they're interested, right? Like, and it's my favorite thing to do is just shut it all down. Like shut it down. But it's not
Yep.
easy. And it takes a lot of discipline for ourselves to do that and then show them as their parents, like, hey, you got to do this too. Like we're taking it all down a notch, right? But yeah, yoga, like the yogis believe that so karma, which is a very common word here in the West, a lot of people think like, oh, if you hurt me, then something's going to come back around, right? And that's like not really what traditional karma is. So, karma to the yogis and to many other belief systems in the East is this soul's journey of karma. So, it's not just this lifetime, it's all of the lifetimes before this one and all of the lifetimes after this one, which another whole other episode, but to keep it kind of reeled in, the yogis believe that based on each individual person's karma is how you will find yoga, how soon you'll find it in your next lifetime, which like leg of it, which branch of it you'll come into it with, right? Like all these different aspects of it. So somebody who comes to yoga, somebody who views yoga as a sport or as an active, as an activity, is that's just based on their karma. And it's not good karma, it's not bad karma, it just is. So somebody else who finds yoga through meditation first and then starts practicing the physical movements has a different line of karma. Somebody who comes in like completely realized and this evolved soul, and then they're like, oh, well, I could move too and meditate and breathe. Like that's a different kind of karma. So it's like, but everybody then like how far you take it is up to you. That's your own free will. And that's also your own karma. So like with me, I found yoga before I even knew what I was doing, right? Like I've always been into like this metaphysical, esoteric stuff. I was always this hippie kid, just kind of beating to my own drum. And then through my stepdaughter in my previous marriage, like it was something that I was offering her. I had no idea that I was teaching her yoga. When I started taking the kids training was when I was like, oh my God, like these are all yogic concepts. Like I can get behind this. I've been doing this. I just had no idea this was yoga. So it's like it's interesting how that all really plays out. And it doesn't matter what part of it you're finding or what part of it you're drawn to. Any practice of any kind is really beneficial, you know?
Yeah. No, 100%. Like you said, it's practice. So just continuing to do it and staying with it and working on it. That's the key.
Totally.
Well, it sounds like you're drawn to this. I'm going to send you a book. Have you ever read Many Lives, Many Masters?
Yes.
Ah, darn. Okay, yeah, that's
Send it anyway.
yeah. There's some follow-ups. I think I got to read a couple of the follow-ups, but yeah, that's what that reminds me. I feel like whenever someone just has this innate draw to something, that book kind of rings true. Where it's like, oh man, like this is probably what's going on. But again, that's a whole nother episode. That's a different type of podcast. But all right, so you've given me a lot here, which I truly appreciate. So I know you probably have to go teach classes or whatever, so we'll start wrapping it up. But first, um, where is Yoga Moksha? Tell us where we can find. I know where the website is, but you're located in Huntington.
Yeah, so our studio's in Huntington. It's on East Main Street, so it's just east of Huntington Village. We have a parking lot in the back. We're in a medical building, which is kind of interesting. It actually, I don't know if you want to keep this in the podcast or not, but this building used to be a funeral home. So there's
Oh,
actually a lot of peace in here naturally.
okay.
Um, so that's where we're at. And also I'm building up a YouTube channel so I can offer a lot of this stuff for specifically for kids and also for adults and also for families so parents can learn how to do this stuff with their kids. And that
I was
handle.
going to ask you about that. Yeah, I was like, do you
Oh,
have a YouTube channel? Like, what's going on?
yeah, so I'm building it up right now. So the handle is Yoga Moksha 108, so 108. Um, and I have like 2 or 3 videos on there, nothing crazy right now, but I have a bunch of content that I've filmed and I need to start editing at that. And I actually have I'm so excited about this. It's going up for sale, I believe, next Monday. It's a PDF, so it's a digital download for kindergartners. It's an activity book that has a bunch of different breathing exercises, a bunch of different cool movements like postures, SEL, social emotional learning, which I'm like massively huge into. So different like gratitude lists and reasons why I love myself lists and things like that.
Mm,
Um, and it's all synced up or will be all synced up with the YouTube channel. So it has instructions in the activity book, but then you can also go on YouTube and like really be interactive with it to understand the postures, how to get into them, do the different like the different activities. And then there's also 3 different meditations, really more visualizations, like guided meditations that the children can listen to, be a part of it. And then in the activity book, it has like a little box that you can draw like what came up for you. So like your visualizations, like you're saying you want to get to that point of meditation where you're seeing the things, right? Like so
heck yeah.
they yeah, so they can be like really interactive with it. And I'm so excited for that. I've been working on that for a while, so that's gonna be really cool.
That sounds awesome. That's going to crush it. I'm gonna predict it now. Like that's going to be massive.
Thanks. I'll
Um,
send you the PDF so you can share it with your kids.
okay.
It's
Oh my
like
God, my 4-year-old will go bananas.
and
Especially then if she sees you on YouTube, she's gonna be like, wait, what?
had my old channel a few years ago, like when we were involved with it, I went to this event one day at a park and this little girl came up to me and she's like, "You're Kim from YouTube. I watch your videos." I was like, I have like 4 subscribers. Thank
Isn't
you.
that the weirdest thing ever though? Like, oh my God, it's so weird.
Yeah, so
I had
weird.
someone recognize me from Instagram once, like at King's. I was walking by Ralph's. He's like, "Hey, you're the realtor guy on Instagram. I see all your videos." I'm like, "Oh," and my wife is like, "Oh, great." I'm like, "Wow,
How do
that's
you
so
use
funny." Yeah, it's so weird. Oh my God.
Yeah, it's so funny though.
All right, we have 2 more questions, or one more question actually. So because I'm pretty much like a referral business, and that's my favorite thing, and I love referring people, which is why I did this podcast because it's basically like a referral for anybody who knows me and thinking about going to a yoga class. You're the person now. Um, give me a referral. What's like one of your favorite? It could be a restaurant, business, whatever, something. What's like one of your favorite places that you want to give a shout out to?
Ooh, I'm gonna have to support my boyfriend.
Okay.
Um, he, well, maybe not. Can you edit that out?
I don't really edit this, but don't worry about it. I don't know how many people watch the entire thing.
Just chop that out of it real fast.
Okay.
All right. Let me think. 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 Okay, I know. There is this amazing organization called Thrive. It's for people in recovery. Um, we do work with them. We have two free events, so I am a little bit biased, but we have two free
That's okay.
events every month. But if you or anybody that you know is moving through the recovery process from addiction of anything, drugs, alcohol, sex, internet, cell phones, technology, work, anything, check out Thrive. They offer so many amazing free events all over Long Island. And it's incredible. Check them out.
That sounds really good. Because yeah, there's definitely a lot of people struggling with a lot of stuff out there. So
Yeah.
that's awesome and great that you work with them. Um, nice. Yeah, I'm gonna throw. Who am I gonna throw? Um, I just had something on the tip. Oh, I have to throw out La Familia in Smithtown restaurant. I usually do restaurants because I love food. But just like great service, great people. They really take care of you there. So it's a solid place. So if anybody's in the area of Smithtown and they want a nice Italian restaurant to go to, La Familia, big thumbs up. Had a good weekend dinner there for my dad's birthday, and they were really great.
Nice.
Um,
Awesome.
yeah, it was fun. All right. Well, that's I think that's gonna cut it for us. Kim, thanks again for coming on. It was great having you on. It only took 20 episodes, but we did it.
Thank you for your patience and thank you so much for having me. This was so fun.
Yeah, this is good. We'll do another one. We'll have to do an update one. Because I think we only touched on like two or three of our topics, but that's okay.
I know.
All
I'm
right.
sorry. I talk a lot.
Don't
Yeah, if
worry
you want
about
a
it.
more
That's
esoteric version of this, you just let me know and we'll talk about crazy stuff.
yeah. Hey, listen, there's we'll do like a nighttime one.
Yeah.
Um and
Black
talk about
light.
well, I'll have the black lights going and the lava lamp, and you can take us to wherever you want. The celestial phase, as we call it. Some people will get that from this weekend. Wink, wink. Um, all right. And other than that, I am going to we're gonna be signing off here.
Awesome. Thank you so much, John.